Good morning, everybody. Circle up, grab a cup. I was actually just typing something like that in the LinkedIn over here, but it's like there's a delay of I don't know, like 30 seconds or something. So we'll just go with good morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome Gerald with us today from Sprinklr. Currently, when I first started speaking with Gerald, you were with LogMeIn, though.
Absolutely, yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's like been an interesting couple of months. So it's like changes in the air. I think for all of us in all kinds of ways. It's like for me, it was transitioning from one company to another.
Yeah, very cool. And with us, as always, is Will McCullen in beautiful green shade this morning.
Yeah, green screen wasn't working quite as well this morning.
I mean, you see mine always is functioning. I try. Like literally 10 seconds before I open this up for everybody to join, I'm like, oh, I might want to, I don't know, vacuum the couch or something. like that's the effort.
It's fine. It's fine. Trust me, it's good that I'm in the corner here. It's not better.
So we wanted to talk to you this morning about what it's like to transition as a CISO, and you have such great experience just throughout your career. Anyway, you and Will were connecting over something that I can't even pronounce, so I'm going to let Will say stuff.
Oh well, I was just noticing, your background, coming with your education, coming from the Universität zu Köln on München. So you have the background from Germany and background of physics, which was near and dear to my heart because my father was a physicist. And we had the brief chat of how just like physics is kind of the overall science, if you will, that includes chemistry and engineering and math and all those elements, because physics is kind of, well, how does things work? Well, cybersecurity is not a separate item. It kind of encompasses a lot of those things, and that kind of spurred on some awesome conversation. So with that, welcome, Herr Beuchelt. How are you doing?
Nice pronunciation. Love it. It's like, that's awesome. No, yeah, no, it's like, you're absolutely right. It's like, I started out back in Germany. It's like, that's where I grew up, and I was always interested in terms of like taking things apart, and it's like how they work from how it really works from the inside, right? So physics was a passion in some ways. It was a lot of fun. It's like I finally decided to go down the path of theoretical physics. But it's like as I was doing that, I was noticing that the job opportunities for theoretical physicists outside of, well, say the university, are not that awesome. So it's like as much fun as it was actually to go through this and it's like learn stuff. It's like, ooh, yeah, kind of cool. It's like only 50 people on the planet understand me. It's like I felt special, right? But it's like in reality, it was just like, okay, it's like for the rest of my life, I'll be changing jobs every 2 years, and it's like probably different cities or sometimes continents, and it's like sometimes hoping for a tenure that may or may not. Nah, it's like it was not so good. So it was during the times when the whole .com stuff was starting to explode, and it's like I was dabbling with computers, right? It's like admin stuff at the data centers at the university and stuff. So I said, like, yeah, you know what? Let's see what I can make the hobby or the side job into like a real job, and that's where the whole physics things. I still read papers occasionally today, or try to. It's like I'm moderately good at this point in time, but it's fun.
Awesome. And you were talking about how your transition to where you spend some time with customer service.
Yeah. It's like that. I mean, it's like this was late '90s, right? So it's like everybody, all the companies were expanding. It was like they needed people to do. And it's like I saw a job there, which was with Sun at the time, Sun Microsystems, for sales engineering, right? It's like, what did I know exactly what that meant? So I took it, and it was because it came with a company car. So it's like, again, ooh, special, right? And it was really good because, I mean, as you can imagine, theoretical physicists do not necessarily have a super developed social kind of capabilities. No, seriously, I kid you not. It's like you sit all day in the corner and you have a pencil and a piece of paper and you do stuff. This is not really awesome. It's like we're not the first ones to be invited to parties, trust me. Or if you go to the parties, they're not the parties that you want to go to.
So this is bad. My only experience with a theoretical physicist is Sheldon Cooper and and Gerald. So it's either you're in my spot or I mean you're very charismatic. Like we have a great time chatting every time we get to chat. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's like they're different kinds of ones, right? It's like, I mean, there's some that learn over time to be a little bit more outgoing, and then I would say there's a lot of good people that are a little bit more introverted. I mean, it's like just the subject brings that a little bit with it.
Yeah,
it's like not totally not everybody. It's like you definitely see different characters there, but it's like some of the stereotypes are not totally off. Let's put it like that. So it's like, here I am, it's like someone introverted is like being thrown into essentially a customer-facing role, right? Sales engineering. It's like I go out with the sales rep and tell everybody how awesome our stuff is. So it was a little bit of a change there. It was actually quite a lot of a change, to be honest with you. But I think it really helped. And it's like, especially, I would say it's like even today, this is one of the more important kind of things that I had in my career, is like being literally thrown out to the wolves, literally out with the customers, hearing their concerns. It's like I'm trying to understand what they needed, what they didn't need, and why they needed certain things or not. Because at the end of the day, it's like we're doing something on the commercial side. We're doing this for the customer. Generally, we're doing this for some form of a customer anyways. So being really in those kind of discussions on an ongoing basis definitely gave me a lot in terms of like appreciating the customers, appreciating the customer reps, the sales reps, etc. But it's like it's really something where I learned a lot in terms of like how to engage across organizations, and I think everybody in security who is in security, who's been playing around with this a little bit, knows how much we are interdependent on a lot of other parts of the company. So it's like the ability to make connections, collaborate, etc., and exchange ideas is so important. And I think being in customer service is like, or customer facing kind of organizations in some form or another, is really helpful from that end. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, there's that.
Well, I think it's really interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm making an incorrect observation here, but it seems like, coming from background, understanding being a lot of those kind of parties, that you take the approach then when you look at it from a security aspect of being a very practical, methodical approach, taking in the whole scope and applying that way, which I think is very healthy for this industry.
Yeah, I think that's something from a physics perspective that I took. It's like, I mean, in terms of like, how do you solve problems really? It's like you have a really complicated kind of a thing, and you start to take it apart into bits and pieces. It's a reductionist kind of approach, but it definitely helps in terms of like moving things forward, right? So it's like you parcel this up into smaller problems, and then you try to isolate them, solve them one by one in a consistent, organized fashion. And it's like, that's something you do in math, it's something you do in physics, it's something, the general approach here I thought was always helpful in terms of like looking at large systems, large complex systems, design. It's like architecture, scalable architectures, or security in general. It's like totally agree with that, 100%. Yeah.
Very cool.
That's awesome. Wow. So is there, I know we were talking about you coming to Sprinklr from LogMeIn and kind of the fire hose that you were under. And we touched on that a little bit before we actually went live. So just for everybody that knows, we get to sit back and talk without you guys sometimes.
Yeah, that was cool too. It's like we're scheming all these kind of things that we want to talk about.
That's the prep we do.
I just needed to grab some water. It's like, that was it. It's so super boring. And lighting was also in the discussion point. It's like that we had, right?
It was. Yeah. So how many meetings a day right now are you doing? Coming into a company as its CISO, right? You have the reins passing over. So how many meetings a day are pretty standard right now that you feel like it maybe,
Lots. It's like, I mean, it's like I have days where I'm starting at 7:30 and ending up at 8 o'clock at night, and I have other days where it's not quite so crazy. But it's like actually one of the things we're doing right now, and I think that's super helpful for me, is really come in and do like a strategic program assessment. And we're doing this with an outside party, so I get like a independent third party opinion about it. It's obviously for myself a little bit of a get out of jail for free card, right? Because it's like, it was all broken. It's like, it was terrible. It's like, we didn't do anything. So anything going wrong for the next half year or year, it's not my fault anyways. No, it's like that's how you could see it, obviously.
Right.
But it's like, I know I think it's really helpful also to get some of the different teams together, because we have the IT team, the corporate IT team there. We have the SaaS tech ops team and NOC folks there. We have legal involved. We have all kinds of parts of the organization involved in terms of like getting together and then going through a list of topics really at a relatively high level, but sometimes drilling down quite a lot. And seeing is like, okay, what's in there, what's not in there, what's missing, where do we have gaps, where are we doing awesome things? Because there's a bunch of areas where we're actually, where I'm super happy to see is like how Sprinklr has done stuff over the course of the evolution, but where it's not maybe super documented. It's like classical kind of startup issue. It's like, yeah, let's do stuff quickly, but at the same time, it's like there's no time to like rest and like start documenting. It's like, oh, there's a process or whatever. It's like the red tape police coming in and then locking everything down. So that's why we haven't done that much. So it's like this really helps to bring some of those things out, and then it's like really get some quick documentation together. Sometimes it's part with just recording the calls and like figuring out how we can transcribe some of the stuff that we learned there, and really bringing everybody then also across those different partners on the same page in terms of like what security people are really asking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. To me, it makes sense. If anybody in the that happens to be hanging out and watching along with us says that doesn't make sense, let us know.
Yeah, it's like I'd be happy to help.
Yeah, we'll help. Like, Vicky Gatewood makes a comment via Twitch. Documentation is always last on the list.
Yeah,
man, isn't that the truth? So hard.
But you know what? It's like you can generate a lot of documentation on the fly depending on how you do things. It's like, I mean, we can record video stuff today. It's like there's a bunch of tools that allow you to do transcripts. So you already have rough notes. It's like often enough the rough notes are already some good evidence or some raw process documentation just by doing that. So I think it's like if we use some of the technologies that we have today, especially with this work from home where everything is online right now. It's like you can generate a lot of documentation on the fly in meaningful ways, and it's like I would encourage everyone to do that because that makes your life easier, like a lot.
So for those that aren't aware of what it is that Sprinklr does, what is the company responsible for? What is its offering?
We are the company that wants to be make everybody happy. It's like our customers. It's like everybody. It's like no. What we're doing is we're customer experience management platform. So it's really focused on optimizing the experience that any kind of consumer or customer has when engaging with the brands that they love, right? So it's like we're focused on large brands, and it's like how they can optimize the overall experience that everyone has when engaging with it. Because it's like if you look at the different age cohorts, like the Gen X, or as like boomers or silent generation, etc., their way of interacting with the company is super different from what millennials or Gen Zers are doing, right? It's like there's the kind of like cut over to more social engagements versus like picking up the phone or getting a letter in the mail, right? So I mean that's just reality. It's like a lot of companies are not necessarily super prepared for that. So I was like, what we're trying to do there is make that easier for our customers in terms of like, okay, it's like you have something coming in through Insta, or you have something coming in through some other social channel. I want to make sure that you respond as a company is like take your customers seriously and respond in meaningful ways. So sometimes you can see that actually for when you're doing this yourself, and it's like writing a complaint tweet. It's like, oh, that was horrible. It's like companies reacting very quickly. That's really one of those things that we want to that we want to drive forward and essentially like make it a better experience for the end consumer, but also for our customers in terms of like having all those channels under control. that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, no, it does. I always wondered that too, why it was they were so speedy at responding. And then because I asked one time that responded to me via Twitter, and it was very quick. It was probably within 10-15 minutes, which for me, I thought that was very quick, right? For me just to be like at whatever, and somebody help me.
Yeah.
And it was fast. And they DM'd me, and I thought, oh, well, this is probably some sort of a, like a customer engagement type bot. And that's usually the first thing I ask, because then I understand how to word my questioning better because of the algorithms, how it pays. Anyway, I'm a nerd.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's like you do want to use some machine, because some questions can really be easily answered with like some automated knowledge bases that can, like, oh, it's like I never knew how to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, how do I do this? It's like, poof, you get the response. Life is good, right? Obviously, there's obviously a lot of smarts that the company has been putting into like making the escalation paths right, so that if some customer really needs more help than just a bot saying like, yeah, it's like, have you tried to turn it off and on? It's like more to go beyond that, right? So it's like that sometimes takes humans.
Yeah. And I mean,
when Rachel doesn't include SQL injections, that's all.
Exactly.
Well, but it wasn't a bot. And I was surprised.
Input validation, my friends. Input validations. Isn't that awesome?
It wasn't. I was like, wow, look at that. And then I started to wonder for a few minutes about like, is there somebody that just sits there for and waits for me to come say hi? Yeah, It kind of is. But
and she knew right away because the person responded with drop tables. What do you mean with drop tables?
This is not IKEA.
Look, I'm just saying, like, sometimes Josh and I are goobers when it comes to engaging with salespeople or sales calls or anything. Because one, I have been in sales and marketing for a very long time. Okay, not necessarily in a cybersecurity related space. Which, by the way, so happy to be here. I'm coming up on 3 years pretty soon, just so you know. I know. Look at that. Nobody has squished me yet. Perfect. But we always engage with them, right? And you get the nice ones that they're so surprised that somebody actually treats them like a human being, that they're super nice, and it's really fun, and it makes their day better. At least I hope it does. It sounds like by the time we hang up, their day is better. But Josh will engage with the ones that are not so nice. Like, the ones that are actually pretending to be some sort of sales call, but it's a phishing type scam that's happening or trying to happen. That's when he picks up the phone, right? Because he works in cybersecurity as well, and he'll really upset them. It's bad. Sometimes he's like put them on hold and walk away for like 2 hours, and they have to like have some rule or something that they have to stay on the phone and engage. He's like, yeah, let me go get my credit card number, and then like.
Nice. Busy. I love it. I totally love that. It's totally awesome.
I asked him once, I'm like, we preach to everybody around us, our family, our friends, don't answer that. Don't give them anything. Don't engage whatsoever. You may give them information you're not aware that you're giving it away, that kind of stuff. And he was like, yeah, but the longer they play with me, the less likely they are to be taking advantage of the next person on the list. And I was like, okay, that's right. Good guy, Josh.
There you go. Absolutely. And have some fun with it.
So how different is the things that Sprinklr are doing, and from obviously from a CISO perspective, right? Because that's your perspective, from LogMeIn. Like, is it a big difference, or is security kind of the same from one to the other? What are some of the things that that you focus on as a CISO, jumping from one organization to another? What are some things that you anticipate to shift, and what are some things that you don't anticipate to shift but sometimes do?
I mean, I would say one thing: security, right? It's like, the fundamentals rarely change. Sometimes you obviously want to make a good risk calculation in terms of like what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. It's like adjust this to the respective companies, kind of like overall risk appetite and risk tolerance, etc. So it's like that changes some of the parameters. Sometimes you work in a regulated industry, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have customers that work in a regulated field, and etc. So there's obviously always, but the fundamentals, I would say, always stay the same. But then you're dealing with very, very different people, right? It's like, sure, it's like it's high tech, and so there's the cultures are somewhat comparable in some ways, but it's like it's different people, it's different expectations, it's a different history, it's a very different technology stack. LogMeIn was a portfolio company, so we had a lot of different kind of products on a lot of different types of systems. It was really, it's like going across pretty much anything that was developed over the last 10, 15 years. All of those things were there, but which makes it a lot more complex, right? So that just to establish a baseline is hard there, because a Java-based environment is very different from a .NET-based environment. It's very different from a PHP-based environment, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like really being able to cut across all those kind of things. You have to start thinking about what kind of where you prioritize. Do we have products that are more important than others? That's super different with Sprinklr. It's like there's one platform. It's like all the products sit on that very same platform, both from a technology stack as well as actual implementation perspective. Some of the underlying architectures are a little different, but it's like it's very, I don't want to say monolithic, but it's like it's very uniform in a lot of ways. And that obviously allows me now to go a little bit deeper and it's like innovate faster as far as security goes across a couple of different across the majority of that. So it's like, as I'm looking forward right now, it's like after the first couple of months, I think it's been just 2 months right now. So how long is it? Yeah, 2 months and change. After this, is like I can already see, okay, it's like we have some of the basics really well covered. So it's like, let's really go deeper and deeper and deeper, because I really can focus on this one stack or this one platform versus like having to deal with, oh, there's a little bit of this, there's a little bit of that, there's a little bit of that. Both are super interesting, right? It's like you can, it's like where I'm at Sprinklr right now, is like I can really go a lot deeper and start thinking about much more advanced and more mature kind of controls. LogMeIn is like the challenges are super interesting, because you have this kind of a different set of environments that you need to worry about, and you can focus on that. But it's same but different, you know.
Yeah.
For being somebody who professes themselves as coming from a background of not having the social experience, you take a great deal of effort to put people into the equation, which I think is fantastic. And when you think about LogMeIn and some of those backgrounds, you've got a lot of technical aspects of attacks and threats coming in that way. Now that you're dealing with a social help area, is it a different perspective from thinking about attackers reverse social engineering?
What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, I mean, as Rachel just described, you know, you get the calls of the people trying to engineer into there. What about the customers that you're trying to help, trying to use that engineering to get into you?
Ooh. Hang on, that's complicated. We got to map that out one more time.
So,
you know, if you were to call up a hacker,
yep,
or if you were giving support to a hacker, and they were trying to initiate something on your end so that they could get in that way. I'm sorry, just a wild thought.
No. It's like, I think it's super interesting, because I mean, it's like at the end of the day, it's like LogMeIn is like definitely one of those. It's definitely been an area where we have been providing a lot of capabilities from for IT departments, right? And it's like a lot of, it's like remote access, for example, right? Classical kind of things, like you want to get, that's how LogMeIn started,
or
right?
Password like management.
Yeah, password management, exactly. No, but also like stuff that can actually be quite useful, because if you're starting to think about it, if you want to do remote support scams, it's like you need remote access tools, right? It's like you need to be, hey, this is Microsoft. It's like, we found a virus on your computer. It's like, just let me log in, right? I mean, that kind of stuff. So it's like, that's obviously something we have in this form. We don't have in this form at Sprinklr, because it's like it's social media management. But so I think that's where they kind of like the focus definitely dictates, or definitely has a huge impact in terms of like how you see the threat landscape and how this would look like. Because I mean, LogMeIn is like we definitely have to think a lot about product abuse. I mean, that's definitely something that is a huge issue, because we also have like literally millions and millions of customers. Sprinklr is like it's more upmarket focused, so it's like we don't have this kind of like millions and millions of customers. We know our customers a lot better than you can is like if you have a freemium kind of product. So it's like that obviously changes a little bit how you think about your direct customers and how to look at the threat landscape from that end. Does that make sense at all?
Oh,
Did I answer that question?
Mine was too obscure. I just went down the rabbit hole of thinking, okay, I'm talking to a human. If I'm talking to a human, what can I do with that, right?
True. Yeah. No. 100%. And it's like, just want to pick up on what Rachel was saying before, or it's like what you are saying before, with regards to people. It's like honestly, it's like I think it's like we're always saying is like we're talking about people, process, technology. I mean, that's the old defense and depth kind of strategy that DoD had, and it's like in many ways we're still looking at this. And I think it's always super important to really emphasize that, because this is really about people, process, and technology, right? Because we have to deal with people in order to make this work, right? It's like it doesn't work if you're just looking at the technology. If you're coming up with the latest mousetrap and nobody is interested in looking at that or bypassing your security controls, guess what? It's definitely something that really gets you to the point where the security controls are not super effective. So what happens then is like you got to look at people, process, technology, and literally in that order, right? So like get everybody on board. It's like make sure that you set your programs out to work for the employees, work for the for your customers, for the markets in general, and then it's like give them the right processes, etc. And I think that's just like setting up any kind of a security program. You should really go down that path, because if you start with the latest and greatest mousetrap, then you end up being in a position where, yeah, it's like you're not going to be effective. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So whenever you're coming into a company like Sprinklr, is understanding what you're walking into, is that part of the kind of the preliminaries into accepting the job, or is that something that you don't get to unbox until once you've already accepted? You're like, oh great, this is what I'm working with.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that is like if you join a company, and I don't care what level you're at, or it's like what company it is, you want to do a little bit of homework, right? It's like, I mean, you want to make sure you understand a little bit what they're doing. It's like how they're doing things. It's like what kind of environment you're coming into, and it's like I did that a lot. It's like I actually liked a lot in terms of like how Sprinklr did some of those things, because they had a fairly extensive interview process. I had the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. Did I know? Yeah, well, like you ask questions, right? Did I
in a company for anybody that might be thinking about being an incoming CISO or security professional at all? If they allow you to ask lots of questions and answer them.
Yeah, exactly.
Good sign.
Yeah, always a good sign. Totally a good sign, right? No, it's definitely something where this worked out pretty nicely. And it's like I had a rough sense in terms of like what I was getting myself into. Obviously, it's like once you come in on the first day, there's always this like, oh, that's how this works moment, right? And it's like you have that naturally, because there's only so much time you really can spend on this. But it's like I would say, it's like learning the people, learning who is doing what, and some of the personalities, and then also motivations. Because I mean, it's like if you think about it, it's like as a security team, we're awfully going out to people and asking them to do something or stop doing something, right? It's like hopefully more asking them to do something new and fun versus like telling them to stop stuff. But the logical question is always like, what's in it for me? Right? It's like, why should I do what the security team tells me to do? It's like, it's been great before. It's like, why would I bother? Really, it's like making changes here. So from that end, it's like the answering the question is like providing an answer to that implicit question, what's in it for me, I think is super important as you roll out.
Yeah, that's true. And being able to understand that that's going to be different, right? From group to group, person to person, too,
Yep.
right? You're going to have different
org to org as well. Yeah. There was one question here right now from Keith regarding it's like how security and risk management fit into the broader organization. Well, it's like actually I like that question because that goes back to one of the things. Why are we doing this security thing in the first place, right? Yeah. What's the motivation for it? Like from a corporate perspective, not from an individual, but a corporate perspective. Yeah, I think it's like it was telling. It's like I was asking at some point in time, like somebody who was working with, it's like why? Sorry, like with a group of people, we're asking, say, hey, why do we do security? It's like seriously, let's sit down. And I was totally shocked when one of them said, it's like, well, security. We do security because of security, which is like the worst possible answer I think you can ever give, right? It's like we're doing it because it's the right thing to do. No, that's not why we're doing security. We're doing it because it has a purpose. It supports the goals of the organization. It makes customers understand that they can trust us. It allows us to operate efficiently as a commercial or non-commercial enterprise, right? So it's like there's a reason why we're doing this. It's the same thing with physical security. You just don't build a wall and put a big gate there and then it's like put a lock on it and a tower just because it's cool, right? So, I mean, it's like you can do that, but it's like it's kind of dumb. And it's the same thing with physical, with like cybersecurity or any kind of security, really. It's like you do this because it serves the purpose of the organization. So it's like if you want to serve the purpose of the organization, well, you gotta engage a little bit with it, right? It's like, so what are we trying to do? It's like what are our overall enterprise objectives? Is like growth tends to be something that's quite typical, like at least for commercial organizations. It's like other non-profits or public sector may have mission goals that they really want to do. So it's like I think it's super important for anyone in security, but especially for leaders in security, really engage with these kind of like organizational goals and the leaders that stand behind that, and then make sure that we can support that as well. And that goes for HR kind of related goals. It's like we want to have people feel comfortable. It's like where they are. So it's like security of the environment. It's like something that's important. So it's like acceptable use policy, all that kind of good fun stuff. It's like let's align that, right? Finance wants to make sure that we manage within our means and in an efficient kind of a way. So it's like cost optimization, growth, cost optimization, efficiency, etc. Those are really important parts of it. And if I can save some money by tools rationalization, which I recommend to everyone to take a look at anyways.
So do I.
Every time, it's like every new system shut two off, right? It's like literally, but it's like that helps.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought it was funny because whenever we started this conversation, you said, one of the reasons you got into cybersecurity and came to this style of role was because you looked around and, theoretical physicists weren't high in demand and you'd have to change jobs every 2 years, everything. I'm like, so you picked being a CISO?
Yeah.
That's like...
Yeah, that kind of like happened, I guess.
I'm like, Gerald, I don't know how to tell this. How to tell you?
Yeah, no, 22 months, right? It's like.
I think it's getting longer, isn't it? Statistically, isn't it?
I think it is. Yeah, I think what was it, like 18 months, a couple of years back, and now it's 22, so we're on the up and up. But it's like it's like it's directionally. It's like it's going.
We're going the right way, at least. Hey, good job. I hope that's indicative of everybody taking security more seriously within their organizations, because I feel like a lot of the 18-month turnaround time was due to frustrations from both sides, right? Mm-hmm. Frustrations of the whatever organization it was, and then also frustrations from the professional that was taking up that torch. Poor person, right? I remember when 3 years ago, right? It's not that long, but I remember when I first got into the industry and understanding some of the dynamics of the CISO role, that a lot of folks hush were calling them that was the black sheep, or not the black sheep, scapegoat. Wrong wrong mammal.
Oh yeah, totally. But I think it's also it's like I think CISOs or it's like security peeps in general are starting to it's like I was saying before, like learning some basic social skills, right? I think that is something that is important. It's like in the really the human aspect in terms of like how to integrate it into a larger management or a larger organization in meaningful ways where you contribute to that. Those kind of like business orientation and it's like the purpose of why we're doing security and how we're doing it and proper risk calculation instead of always looking at the black swan events. It's like having a little bit more serious kind of outlook in terms of like, okay, if we look at the different kind of types of risks that we're potentially facing from a likelihood and impact perspective, we don't want to focus always on the black swan things and essentially like roll the organization upside down, but it's like really look at some of the nuisance events first and make sure that we're covered against those, because often enough we're not. Right, and those are often enough the ones that really bite us. So it's like I think this kind of like getting a little bit more serious about how we actually apply our knowledge in meaningful ways to help the company definitely also helps with the acceptance of security as a discipline and as a part of the larger organization. I think that's something that's going in the right direction.
Well, to expand just a little bit on one of the slight nuggets that you brought up there was the whole concept of bringing the security awareness outside of just the technical and into how it's helping the company, how it is an integral part of protecting the company and keeping not just protecting the company because it's what everyone thinks, right? But keeping things flowing, keeping things ability to do what they do, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally agree. And awareness, I think, is one of the most important parts of any kind of security team, right? It's like make sure you have a really good communicator on the team who can actually speak the language that security people tend not to speak, like English, right, or like whatever the local language is. No, it's like I think it's super important because it's like if your security training is like a half-hour computer-based training thing where you click through, it's like you already failed your first test. It's like literally, it's like that's just so. I've seen so much bad security training, but it's like again, it's like that's one of those areas I think where we're getting better because there is really some good security training coming up right now that's actually engaging.
Yeah, there really is a lot. Joshua. So for those who don't know, Joshua's my husband. He's in the other. He also works in security. If you haven't heard me say that before, but he's on the other side of the fence for me. He's the guy in the trenches kind of thing. He's a SOC analyst, and he says one way to do that is to stop calling it security awareness and simply call it safety training, which is something some of my friends over at like Wiser Training talk about. Gabrielle Freelander and Chris Roberts is also part of that group, and Rich over there, who's amazing. They often talk about it's just safety, like it's not security awareness, like that's weird and cryptic, but it's about teaching end users how to be safe online and just I don't know, look both ways before you cross the digital street, kids. Like that's what those videos are about. Right? Like that's what those videos are about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And definitely, I love your point that make sure that there's somebody on your team that speaks the non-infosec language, right? Because for anybody who follows me, you guys know that I do preach that. Will mentioned it before we went live too. That Rachel likes to talk about get off infosec island.
That's
right.
Absolutely true.
Right. Stop in the gatekeeping. Like it's this very serious like tech heavy language that infosec professionals use, and CMMC and ISSA and ISACA, and you know what I mean? Like nobody knows what you're talking about.
It's like I know so many acronyms and I could throw them around. It's like it doesn't make you smarter.
That's just industry standard jargon. Joe, I know you got to bounce soon, and we are over on our time. So thank you, everybody, for sacrificing an extra 8 minutes to come hang out and have coffee with us. Or water.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Will. Much appreciated.
Definitely. Next week, we will not be having a virtual coffee because Joshua and I will be in Disney World. I know. I'm so excited, you guys. We're going to Star Wars.
Your priorities, right?
It's going to be fun. But the week after, be sure to come check us out. We will be here talking. Nope, that's the wrong one. Cyber compliance strategies with a friend of mine, Greg LaRoche, from Prevail, who's very fun, very cool. They're awesome. You're gonna love it. It's super, right? It's the best topics ever. Cyber compliance. Who doesn't want to hang out on a Friday and just nerd out about compliance?
All the time.
Yes. So thanks again, Gerald, and thanks, Will, for continuing to accept my invitations. We'll see y'all next time.